Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Our phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Don't forget to sign up for the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter at our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, and our free app. Really wonderful stuff there. And, of course, one of the big stories concerning a downtown restaurant and somebody openly carrying and then the restaurant asking them to leave. That person that left was a state representative. Joining us now, it's been a while. Always great to have David Drucker on from the Washington Examiner. Mr. Drucker, thank you for joining us once again here in Idaho.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
So we've got Michael Cohen testifying. We've got the Democrats. We've got the Republicans. But I'd like to hit you with this one. Plan B for rebel Republicans: wound the president so much that he'll lose to a Democrat in the general election? Really? Bill Weld?
Well, not Bill Weld, somebody bigger than that. I don't think there are many within this sort of loose confederation of anti-Trump Republicans that think Bill Weld is the guy that can get it done. So they're on the hunt for somebody who's got a little bit more political heft, a little bit more strength. A lot of this relies on how damaged or not the president actually is heading into 2020, because I don't think any candidate that they would really like to have is going to run a kind of kamikaze mission. I don't think that sort of a politician is interested. But wounding the president so that he limps into the general election, for Republicans that are very, very committed to dislodging Trump as a part of their effort to sort of reconstitute the party to its more sort of traditional Reagan. Wounding the president is an option. It's not their first option. It's not their preferred option, but it is an option that they might be willing to settle for if it's the best they can do. Having said that, I just want to reiterate, nobody I talk to thinks Well's the guy to get it done. He's just the only guy that's actually running at the moment.
Sure, and publicly you've got, you mentioned this in your piece in the Washington Examiner, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. He's been talking a little bit about this as well, but with all due respect to Governor Hogan, I just don't see that happening. Maybe he could be a spoiler in New Hampshire, but really to be a legitimate threat to the president, wouldn't that be like a Kasich or someone else?
I don't even know that it would be a Kasich. It's, the issue here, when you think about this, right, is usually a challenge to the establishment incumbent, which is what Trump now is, comes from the right with at least a very committed base of support that may be small in number, but very enthusiastic and very vocal. And in the event that a challenge like this were to happen, whether it was Kasich or Larry Hogan or somebody similar, you'd be running a challenge at the populist who happens to be in office with a traditional establishmentarian. So it's backwards. And the question is, can a traditionalist, can an establishmentarian harness the disaffection for Trump that does exist in the Republican Party? I mean, he's broadly very popular within the party among self-identified Republicans. But there is a set of Republicans that have issues with him, and we saw that manifest in the 2018 midterm elections. Would a person like that be able to harness that to at least create an annoying, concerted challenge? Because the kind of voters that this person would have to harness aren't necessarily the activist sort that are vocal and active in a primary, that show up at county precinct meetings and all of that. So there are a whole lot of questions that have to be answered. I think for the crowd that is trying to pull this off, what they're imagining, and they're really quite honest with me when I talk to them, that they know it may not go down this way, but they're imagining it's possible that Trump ends up far more politically damaged than he might be today. And, you can argue that maybe he's got some political baggage, maybe he doesn't, depending on how you want to look at it. But they imagine it's possible the Mueller investigation, the Mueller report damages him. They imagine that there are these other investigations out of the Southern District of New York and the Justice Department that damage him, that other scandals just pile up, and that maybe, the way he looks today, which is, he could lose, but he could win, maybe that picture looks a lot different 6 months from now.
David Drucker joining us from the Washington Examiner on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. But, Mr. Drucker, and you figured this out a long time ago, but if the president had an opponent, that might actually help him. It seems that many of the pain or the losses are self-inflicted with the president. So if he had someone go after him, could it be possible that that actually would help him?
Well, some Republicans in his circle believe that. They think the president always is in his best mood and looks his best when he has somebody to beat up on. That it would strengthen him, it would give him something to focus on, and it would frame the sort of choice for Republicans, and that because of the way he tends to operate, having this sort of a fight would work out better for him. The flip side of that is that he's not the outsider candidate running against the establishment the way he was in 2016. He's now the sitting president, and he now has a record. And so a primary campaign, if it was a real campaign, even though this person, let's say, has no chance of dislodging him in a primary for all sorts of reasons that we could discuss that are obvious, but that it would not work the same way. So there's definitely that view that a primary would help him, give him somebody to fight and beat up on. On the other hand, he is the president, and this would sort of magnify some schisms in the party and be an irritant for him, and he'd roll from one fight into the next. And it wouldn't, therefore, just be him against the Democrats. It would be him against some Republicans, and that wouldn't serve him well. He's better off being able to just fight with the Democratic nominee, whoever that ends up being, and allowing the attention to be on, what's probably going to be a very divisive, competitive Democratic primary.
David Drucker, are you getting ready to get back on the trail? A lot of Democrats this time around.
Yeah, I will get out there. You don't learn much sticking around here where I live, unless I'm on the Hill covering Congress. So I am going to get on the road.
A couple more. Michael Cohen, what do you make of the revelations that are going to be coming out and that the House is under Democratic watch now?
Yeah, look, with a Democratic House, you're going to see vigorous investigations, the kind that didn't occur when Republicans were running the chamber. Yeah, and this is par for the course. Whenever you have, a party and a congressional majority, whenever you have a White House and a congressional majority of the same party, they tend to look out for each other and not get into it too much. So the Democrats are going to push the limits of investigations, and that means we're probably going to learn a lot more or have a lot more to talk about than we would have otherwise. With Cohen, you don't know what to believe. I mean, I think a lot of the things that he will say will theoretically be believable. The question is whether he's believable. He's lied before, and so, we're dealing with the old adage, you can trust me now that I was lying then. And right. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what his testimony reveals, what proof he offers, and, even though Cohen may be a self-interested liar, it's possible he's telling the truth now. I'm sure either way the president would prefer that his old fixer were still fixing things for him and not, now coming after him.
Yeah, it's just reminds me of Godfather 2 when Michael Corleone goes before Congress. Maybe that's not an accurate reference, but it's going to be good theater, I suppose.
And it's going to be good theater. And, I think the issue, too, is so we may learn a whole bunch of things about the president, let's say, and do people have any reactions to them differently than they've reacted in the past? We know the president's had extramarital affairs. We know the president has said awful things about people behind closed doors. We know he's skirted the law at times. We know he's done all sorts of things that are normally out of bounds in politics, and yet he was elected president nonetheless. So, will we learn things or have different reactions to things, meaning voters generally, than has happened to date? It may matter now that he's president. It may matter whether or not he did some of these things as president versus a candidate. So we'll see.
Let me appeal to the idealist, David Drucker, here. Final question on KIDO Talk Radio. David Drucker joining us from the Washington Examiner. But, does it really serve the Republic that Michael Cohen is going to call the president a bunch of names? Does that really benefit our cause?
I think it always serves the public to have the legislative branch hold the executive branch accountable. And, usually what happens is when a Republican Congress is holding a Democratic president to account, the Democrats cry foul and say it's unfair and a big witch hunt. And, we saw how Democrats reacted to Republicans investigating what happened in Benghazi in September of 2012. And now, of course, Republicans are crying foul that House Democrats are actually, doing their job and holding a Republican president to account. So nobody has clean hands here. Everybody practices situational politics. But the way it is supposed to be is the legislative holds the executive accountable. They obviously push the limits of politics because, well, I'm sorry, in a boxing match, people get punched. But that's the way it goes. I think the question shouldn't be why are Democrats doing this, but I think the better question is why don't the parties hold their own presidents to account, not why are they, giving Trump such a hard time or why are Republicans giving Obama such a hard time.
David Drucker, once again, you're back on the trail. We so appreciate you joining us here in Idaho. Thank you and safe travels, sir.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. David Drucker. Love speaking with him. Thank you, Ray MI, for that one. Our phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Julian Castro's in town, and before he got to speak at Boise State, he went on the road, again, reinforcing reparations. He's not the only major Democrat that wants Americans to pay for slavery. We'll talk more about that in a minute. First, Liberty Linda joins us now. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Good morning, Kevin. Gun-free zones attract kooks that want to hurt others in the first place. And so I think it's a good idea that teachers and faculty that want to concealed carry, should be able to do that. We trust them with our children every day, and, they have to protect our children in some way. Too many shootings have gone on in our schools. And so anyway, I think that's a good idea. We should protect our children. We've had so many shootings. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right, and this is in reference to the bill that's being proposed in the legislature that if you have the enhanced concealed carry permit, you don't need to tell the school board, you don't need to tell anybody, you can just carry the weapon enhanced and concealed.
Correct. And I think that's a good idea because even some of the people in the school will not know who has a gun. So if someone in the school wants to hurt someone, perhaps there'll be someone there that can protect themselves and our children. We have to use wisdom in this. After what we've seen in our country, for our innocent children, it's truly unbelievable. We love our children, all of our children. And we sit back and watch this in our government, what's going on today. And our jaws are hanging open almost all the time, Kevin. We can't believe what's going on in our government. Here we have a president that has done so much for the people, our country, and the Dems just want to bring in socialism. I mean, do we even believe what's going on, Kevin? It's unbelievable to me as one person. And I want to say thanks to our buddy Sean Hannity. After I raised my children and I was listening to his show one day, I was hearing all of these Democrats calling our country a democracy, and my jaw was hanging open. I was thinking, what? These are our leaders, and we don't know what country, what type of country, or what type of government our founding fathers gave us? I just couldn't believe that this was going on. And so that's when I got involved in government, and I started listening and wondering what in the world is going on. So anyway, yes, we absolutely need to protect our children. We need to wake up and find out what's going on in our government. If there's anybody listening that don't know that the people running actually want to change our government into socialism, do we ever think that we'd get to this point, Kevin?
Look, Liberty Linda, they are out to get us, led by Cortez and the others, and they see a chance. You've got Julian Castro in town yapping about reparations, although 62 or 68% of Americans do not want to pay reparations. When are we going to get rid of the self-flogging, the self-loathing, and everything else, and just get to the wonderfulness that is the United States of America?
You put it so beautifully. Absolutely. And, our children, it's just unbelievable. And our children are being brainwashed in the schools. We can see that. They're out protesting in the streets, and we wonder what in the world. We do have a wonderful country. We have marvelous children here. Just, we've heard some of the greatest children. They're so intelligent. And so our hearts go out to our children of the United States. And
right, and that's what we're fighting for. The Stop Socialism Express right here, right now in Idaho.
We love our country. We love what our founding fathers gave us. And, I think the only one that may have a chance, and I don't think he's announced, Biden may have a chance to win. I don't know about all these others, but he just might have a chance to win. But I don't think he's announced yet. You may know that, but I don't.
No, he hasn't. Liberty Linda, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436. 580-KIDO, Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Coming up next, two major Democratic candidates say it's time for America to pay up for slavery. One of them was just in town. We'll tell you about it next on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. And how about this? The Democratic-led House rejecting the president's national emergency. Nice to know the libs are in charge. Good morning. Waking up on the right side, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. And 41. Boy, that'll be welcome. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio, taking your phone calls at 580-5436. By the way, for those of you that live in Eastern Oregon, or Western Oregon, that's right, Western Oregon, getting my things messed up. Yeah, Eastern Oregon. And are in Congressman Walden's district. He was one of the Republicans that voted against the national emergency. 13 House Republicans have done that. The Senate is required to hold a vote on the resolution within 18 days, but Congressman Walden did not vote for that. He voted against that resolution. So for our friends in Eastern Oregon that would love to be living in Idaho, there you go. Local representation as it works. Here we go. Back to the story concerning Julian Castro in town recently. Hi, everybody. I'm running for president. 44 years old, has decided to stake his claim on who can be the most liberal. Recently, he was asked about reparations. The other night on Hardball, he was asked more about reparations and saying, "Are you really serious, sir, or are you pandering?" Here's his response.
Recent poll I could find on it, I think it was about 2 or 3 years old. It showed 2/3 of Americans opposed to that idea. There, you put up on the screen, 68% were against reparations. You could just talk a little bit more about what it is you would do as president when it came to that, and if you are worried that sends a message to that 68% of Americans who say they're against it, that maybe you are out of the mainstream a little.
Well, this is not something that I think of through a political lens. I have long believed that this country should resolve.
You ever notice with these folks, they never say America, the United States of America, our country. It's this country needs to resolve. And I'm thinking, your twin is a congressman. You're a former HUD secretary. You're raised by a single mom. This country did a lot for you, sir. This country did a lot for you. Now, I understand that there's not a lot of groundswell for Castro for president. And yes, it allows you to get on Hardball, the lowly rated show on MSNBC. However, reparations, really? And I guess we could call this the Cortez effect, where we have the devious little libs deciding to do anything they can to make a name for themselves. Kind of like Name That Tune. You remember that show, Name That Tune? If you don't remember that show, Name That Tune, it was basically Name That Tune, and you could do it in 7 chords or 5 chords or notes or what have you. That's like the Democratic Party, what they're trying to do. I could be more leftist. No, I'm a socialist. No, I'm a super socialist. Just to pander to the crazy, wacky, zany wing of that party. And by the way, to Idaho Democrats that probably would be Republicans anywhere else, is this a standard bearer of your party? Are you, to the 3 Democrats that listen to this program, are you down with reparations? Now, some people will, Blue Girl, Red State, and all these other wonderful bumper stickers that they have on their cars that they're allowed to have. And if we have a Trump for president sticker on, they bash our vehicles. Freedom of expression only works for the libs, apparently. Tolerance only works for the libs, apparently. So here you have Castro saying he's in favor of reparations. Is that the same for all Democrats in Idaho?
It's original sin of slavery, and that one of the ways we should consider doing that is through reparations for people who are the descendants of slaves. It is interesting to me that under our Constitution and otherwise, that we compensate people if we take their property. Shouldn't we compensate people if they were property sanctioned by the state? So I believe that is a conversation that's worth having. And I see that as right and wrong. I don't see that as...
Sure. Then are we going to compensate people that freed the slaves? Then are we going to compensate people who got rid of Jim Crow? Are we going to, is this just going to be one nation under, who's entitled to what? Right? Well, Julian Castro is not the only one who's doing this. We've got Kamala Harris, who now people say that she is not black enough to be president. And I'm paraphrasing in fairness to her. Look, Kamala Harris, an accomplished prosecutor. Yes, she did have an affair with the mayor of San Francisco, Willie Brown at the time, and he's openly disclosed that. She seems to now have to apologize for being a prosecutor. And then we have these folks, and we've talked about this before, we've alluded to it, where you have the young millennials saying that Kamala Harris, I believe she's married to a white man. I don't know why we have to have a scorekeeper on who's married to who and the race here and ethnic politics and identity politics and everything else. I think it's a disservice to somebody running for office. I believe that we should not be running on race. We should be running on character. We should be running on qualifications. But we have other people that, view things differently. And coming up, you're going to hear from one young millennial on MSNBC saying Kamala Harris needs a strong blue-collar black man in her corner. Because apparently, I guess her husband's white. I don't know. What does that have to do with national security? It has nothing to do with national security, but this is the state of the modern-day Democratic Party. This is what we're up against. Won't you join us? You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. Fox News Now.
Men, blue-collar black men, they're going to have a problem with her record. And you're right, Karine, she's not the only person. But I will say I think the African-American community expects more from people who looks like us, particularly a candidate who wants to represent us. So she needs to find a strong black man advocate who can be in her corner at some point on the campaign, at some point in any space in her campaign. That I would say that was my key advice. Find a prominent blue-collar, self-made black man to be in your corner.
Let's just be candid. When you're saying that she needs to have an advocate out there for her, it's not going to be her husband. She's got to surround herself with African-American women.
There we have it. That was Tiffany Cross from the Beat DC. I don't know who she was, but it's crazy when we think of the subjective racism going on. And a wonderful reason why we live in Idaho, where we're so overly cautious about this. If you're just moving into the area, it happened, last year, 2 years ago. There was a soccer team in Eagle, Idaho. All of a sudden, somebody comes up and writes a racist note on the coach's windshield, leaves it there. It makes news. People denounce it. That's where you're living in Idaho. I think it's a sad state of affairs when you have Kamala Harris has to apologize for being a prosecutor. What are these crazy, wacky, zany libs thinking about? You crazy, wacky, zany, goofy libs. You know what I'm saying? Now, to quote Newsbusters here, imagine Fox News in which Sean Hannity or Kevin Miller advises the candidate that they need a strong white man as their advocate. Isn't that crazy? It is weird. Going further, imagine a woman candidate whose conservative credentials are questioned by some because her husband is African American. It's just wild. Could you imagine that firestorm? And again, it really doesn't relate to our lives, but it shows you the outside world that we're living in. And we're very fortunate to live in our bubble here in Idaho. Phone number is at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, going to a story from KIDOTalkRadio.com. This is a story that's getting a little buzz. Two stories involving guns. One having to do with whether or not if you are allowed to have the ability to go into a school wearing a weapon. Now, the bill by Representative Christensen of Amen says, and it really hasn't even gotten a number yet, that if you have the enhanced concealed carry permit, that if you've passed the course, you should be able to be a teacher, you should be able to go into a school, and you should be able to wear your weapon. You don't have to tell anybody. Currently, you can bring a concealed weapon into school, but you have to get the permission of the school board to do this. Representative Christian says, look, man, very simply, I don't want to deal with school shootings, and the probability that school shooting will happen is greatly diminished if we have someone who is trained to use a weapon. Now, unlike Kevin Miller, when you get the enhanced carry certification, you go through a lot of training indeed. So I go to the story now, once again involving Representative Heyman, at KIDOTalkRadio.com, and it comes to something that is unique to Idaho. And if you've moved to Idaho recently or you've been here for a little while, people wear their guns, right? People love guns in Idaho. They love to hunt, they love to fish, they love to hike, but they love guns. It takes you a while, I suppose, to get used to it. Wearing your gun in public. To me, it's a sign of freedom, it's a sign of expression, it's a sign of protection, and of course, protecting the Second Amendment. So, we've got a report on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, where you have, once again, Representative Christensen sat down at a local restaurant with members of the Three Percenters. Now, the Idaho Real Three Percenters, we love those folks. They're great. They support Miller's mission. They're out there fighting the good fight, and we so thank them for their generous donations. This is in our wheelhouse. So they go into a local restaurant. They were open carrying their handguns, which is legal in Idaho. It's legal to conceal and carry in Idaho as well. It is. Now, the enhanced concealed carry, that takes some training. So apparently, some people approached management at this particular restaurant, and they were concerned that they were openly carrying the handguns. One person even had a shoulder holster that was at the view. Now, you have somebody saying, hey, guys, people are very concerned about this, and, this isn't really where we want to go in this restaurant. So, you have some folks reporting that one man was wearing a shoulder holster, which alarmed the owner even more. The owner allegedly said that was way over the top and not necessary. Now you have Representative Christensen in our story saying the owner was, quote, negative, rude, and aggressive. Representative Christensen also said he had issues that, in fact, they were addressed on this issue after they had ordered and paid for lunch. I know what you're saying. It's the Idaho bait and switch. So now you have people saying that this certain restaurant is not gun friendly. And you've got people on Facebook and Twitter commenting. Look, we believe in the benefit of the doubt. If that's why we're not saying the name of the restaurant. Obviously, if Representative Christensen wants to come on, if other people want to come on. But the broader question to you, and usually I give my opinion, and here's my opinion, people wearing guns in the restaurants is not a big deal. Now, I will tell you here at the Broadcast Center, I believe we have the no gun policy, yet we still have listeners coming in all the time seeing this program wearing the guns. Do I have an issue with it? No, it is America. It is Idaho. It is legal. But if you're going to have a no gun policy, that needs to be posted, and I believe that's in violation of state law. But the broader question, whether you're a native, whether you've been here for a long time, do you have an issue with people wearing their firearms? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It is their legal right to do so. I always believe this. The people that are wearing the guns, that go to the ranges, that do everything else, I have more in common with them than the people that want to grab the guns. The other side of the equation, look, I'm a business owner. I'm serving food. I'm having a good time. I can tell people I don't want them in my restaurant. You know the idea, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Does that apply to the Second Amendment in Idaho? Usually, again, I give you my opinion, which I did. I have no issue with it. People have a right to carry guns. People have a right to open carry guns. And if the people from Portland, Seattle, and Los Angeles don't like people wearing guns, or Boise for that matter, maybe they should look at another place to go. As I've said, I know the Idaho 3%ers very well. We haven't met Representative Christensen yet. But I thought it was a topic that we should take a look at. Let's go to the phones at 580-5436. And then do you have guns in theaters? Guns. Art in Eagle, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Art.
Hey, Kev. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've lived in this beautiful state for a little over a year, and it's just wonderful. I think where I come from, people would have a tither if there was someone with a gun in the restaurant. However, having said that, and I believe in carrying guns, and I do all the time, I think if someone says, no, we don't want you carrying a gun here, like you said, I would publicize it. And I would tell people, nope, they are not gun friendly. They don't want guns in the restaurant. And, case closed. And I'm sure, especially, the area that I've been in, Boise, you can carry guns just about anywhere. And if someone has that issue, then I guess maybe they get shut down eventually because they're not going to have any customers.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, are there more gun grabbers or gun lovers in Idaho?
Yeah, no, definitely gun grabbers. That's why most people moved out here, because of our freedoms that we have here. And if someone doesn't like those freedoms, then maybe they should go back west or wherever they came from.
Art, welcome to America. Thank you for finding us here on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thanks, Captain.
Thank you. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. People east of the Great River, they come in, they go, what's all with all these people with guns? Is this the Wild West? No, it's called freedom. It's called where the individual has rights and liberty and expression, as opposed to the overwhelming power of the state that we see east of the Great River. In fact, I'm continuing to deprogram myself from my lifetime east of the Great River here in Idaho, where you want to go into a restaurant and wear a gun. What's wrong with that? Again, the story is on KIDOTalkRadio.com. Getting a lot of buzz and a lot of information on this. I can remember a guy. He moved away, but he moved here. Our friend Rance Pugmire knows this gentleman as well. And he went into a bank and he was openly carrying. And the people at the bank said, you can't do that here. And he goes, it's state law. I can do whatever I want. Well, you're not going to do it at our bank, little buddy. He just took his money out and went to a different bank. Think about this. If you're going to rob someone, are you going to have a gun on a holster? And what's the big deal about having people openly carrying? Are we that fearful? Are we that untrusting of our fellow men and women? And like I said, the Idaho Real 3%ers, they are always training. When most of us are hanging out, having a good weekend, these people are out in the field. They're shooting. They're training. They're working to protect us. That's kind of a weird thank you. Hey, according to the published report, hey, I want your money. You're going to pay for lunch, but you need to hide your weapons. Which side would you be on? The gun grabbers, or you could say the business owners, or the people that are just sitting there paying money to eat food at this place? We'd love to hear from you next. Join the conversation now with me, Kevin Miller, on KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller taking your calls, and I love this from this guy, Mark. You just said, are we that fearful? Are we that untrusting of our fellow men and women, Kevin Miller? Okay, tough guy. Now explain why you need to carry and display your gun everywhere you go, and then try to do it without saying the Constitution says so. Well, Mark, I am on the right of justice and truth and the Constitution. You, my friend, would have to tell me where the Constitution says we cannot. I'm not going to try and disprove something that's already there. But Mark exemplifies the gun grabbers that we're up against. Let's go to your phone calls. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Kurt in Boise with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Kurt.
Morning, Kevin. Hey, I just found your website, and I thought the article you wrote about the restaurant not letting these guys carry their guns is very interesting. I just wanted to quote the owner of the restaurant. I found it very funny. He goes, I'm not against guns, concealed guns, or even open carry, except, this is the key word here, except in being in populated areas, cities with restaurants, bars, libraries, parks, etc., where families with children are, and where a mass of diversity breathes openly. Well, diversity means everybody should have a say. This guy's not giving us our right to do what is happening. I mean, I appreciate being able to carry our gun out in the woods. That's great. But where are most mass shootings taking place? They're not in the woods. They're in the city, the schools, the libraries, the restaurants. So I don't understand how these liberals will say it's okay to do it, but not in my backyard.
Well, that's the point of contention. And by the way, I didn't write that article. That was a colleague of mine. However, I go back to this. You want to ban guns or you want to follow the law?
Right. I mean, you know, the bad guys got their guns just like gun-free zones. So if the good guy doesn't have a gun to protect himself, the bad guys know it, and they go in there, and it's open season. So I don't understand where these people are thinking, because the bad guys don't follow the rules. That's why they're bad guys.
Exactly. Kurt, thank you for the call.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Let's go to Brian in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Kevin. So let's talk about the pros and cons of open carry. The pros are 98% of criminals are going to be deterred by seeing that weapon. The con is the 2% that are going to try to kill you are going to try to take that weapon away from you. So, you know, I believe in open carry, but do I do it all the time? No. I conceal a lot because I want the element of surprise. But like your last caller said, you know, I've lived all over this country, and it's funny, the places that I need my weapon the most are places that it's not allowed. And, you know, we talk about school security. Glenn Beck had a guy on a school in Texas that is now allowing their security to pack basically what's similar to an AR-15. It's a Kel-Tec. And there's another city, Texas City in Texas, that are allowing their school security to carry AR-15s because they said we're not messing around anymore. So if those schools are basically allowing, you know, their armed, trained people to display those weapons as a deterrent and to put signs up saying, you know, our staff is armed, I think you got your answer. Got any questions for me, Kevin?
Brian, I think you've covered everything. Thank you. You're in my prayers. Hope you're doing well with the CPAP, brother.
Yeah, and just a quick thing, I got to clarify. The enhanced concealed carry, it's good beginner training. It's 4 hours of law. You're sitting down with a lawyer, and it's basically 4 hours of gun handling.
Great point, Brian. I got to run. Fox News now, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.